Hello everyone, this is Roxana from Eutopian Lettings, and today I have prepared for you a video about property management questions. So what I did today was to go on Google and see what people are typing as a question with regards to property management, and I will be answering some of those questions. I've picked a few of them that seem relevant, and we are going to talk about each one of them. Okay, so first one. What is a property management company? A property management company is in charge of taking care of everything that a property needs. Like they could arrange for certificates to be done on the property before renting. They could arrange to find tenants, and then if the tenants are sending requests about something not working in the property, instead of contacting the landlord, they would contact the management company. So the management company would normally send a plumber, an electrician, or anyone that is a specialist in their field and can solve the problem of the tenants, as long as the problem is written in the contract that comes under the obligations of the landlord and not the tenant. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Some companies have their own property manager that is kind of like a handyman, and he knows a bit of everything and he does that, but that's mainly for commercial properties where the property manager also has to fix things. But for a normal agency that does property management, all they do is call specialists. They arrange inspections for the property. For example, you need to check on tenants every now and then. It depends on the agency how often they do these checks. They might do it once a month, once every 3 or 4 months. They could come and check the smoke alarms or the carbon monoxide. So all of these things are arranged by a property manager. Sometimes if it's something easy, the property manager comes and he checks that on his own, like doing the property checks. Other times when they require a specialist, then they send someone, and then they send an invoice to the owner that needs to pay the services of this person. Okay, next question. How property management companies work? Okay, so I'm gonna go back because I think we skipped a few questions. So let's see, first one. No, that's fine. Okay, so how property management companies work. So the way they work, usually the agencies here are the ones that are doing property management. So they start by helping the landlords find tenants. Now, once they found the tenant, they go to the landlord and they ask, do you want me to help you collect the rent as well? And then if the landlord says, yes, please, then they would ask, do you want me to help you manage the property as well? Because there are a lot of people who have invested in properties in places where they don't live, and they need to hire these companies to take care of their properties. And also because most people are not aware about all the property laws in England. The property market is highly regulated, so there's so many rules and so many laws that you have to follow, and in order to follow you need to be aware of all of these laws. And that's where a management company comes in place. They make you aware of everything you need to be legally renting a property, and they help you get those approval certificates or verifications or anything that you need in order to be compliant with your company, with your property. Okay, next question. How can I become a property manager? Okay, so a property manager, you can become a property manager 2 ways. One would be to start working as an estate agent. In the UK, it's really easy to find a job as an estate agent. If you are able to speak to people, if you have good communication and people skills, and if you're a nice person who dresses well, presentably, and you know how to drive a car, then that's basically all the qualifications you need to be an estate agent. You need to be good with a computer and with people, because you're going to be doing viewings all day. Once you get hired as an estate agent, you can start learning on the job what being a property manager requires, and you can see inside an agency how they work, what paperwork they ask from landlords. You can see what software they use, and maybe you're gonna have to do a few things on that particular software, so you are gonna be trained with time on these softwares. And it's a very good way of learning, because having all of these skills or earning all of these skills, if you have to use the other way of becoming a property manager, which is learning by yourself, it's going to be a little bit more independent but more expensive, because you're going to have to pay for property trainings, and you're going to have to meet up with other agents and try to learn from them. But it's much easier if you learn on the job. So if you work as an estate agent for maybe 6 months or a year, and then you should be able to acquire more knowledge about how to manage a property. And you're gonna also learn where the best resources are to get these trainings, what the best softwares are, and how everything works. So it's a really good idea to start as an estate agent, because you're going to have a whole overview of the entire system and how everything is connected. And it's a good learning curve, and it's the cheapest way as well. Not only the cheapest, but you will also get paid. So it's a really good idea. And then the second way would be to open your own company and start looking for landlords like that. But that's a bit trickier, because once you open your own property management company, you're going to have to need so many skills. You're going to need to know how to speak to people, how to sell. You're going to need to know about the property laws and all of these things. So there's a very big pool of skills that you're going to need to have if you decide to start this on your own. So the best way to do it is to start as an estate agent, and then if you want to be independent and you are going to be able to find your own clients, then you can do it on your own as well. Okay, what is a property management agreement? Okay, so a property management agreement is the agreement that a landlord signs with the agency. The agency usually writes in the agreement how much they want to charge the landlord and what services they offer in exchange for that fee. They most of them offer, specialists. They refer the specialists, and they supervise things. Some agents charge more if they have to supervise something really expensive, like changing the gas pipes or changing the entire electric or things like that. So they can do that for you as well. They can supervise these things. But if you're going to pay a lot of money for something this big to be changed, they're probably going to charge you to supervise the whole project. And everything is written in the management agreement. They will write how much fee they take, and if it's a fixed fee or if it's a commission based. Sometimes it's a percentage of the rent. So it depends. They also write if they charge you for renewing the agreement or not. But every single agency has its own fees depending on the location, depending on the on how old the agency is, and how many clients they have, because an agency that is already has built a name for itself can afford to charge more, and they also have more solicitors. They might have a better advice from other professionals, from accountants, from solicitors. So they do pay these people more, but their contracts are better. So that is a good way of doing business. Okay, so yeah, a property management agreement is signed between the landlord and the agency. And of course, it's written there how you can terminate the agreement, how long it's for, and so on. There's also people who do rent to rent. So there are agencies who offer rent guarantee to the landlord. And that's also called a property management company, and sometimes they use a property management agreement because subletting a property is illegal. So what the landlord does is he gives the property to the agency, and then the agency offers in return. Sometimes they offer many more things. For example, they could offer free maintenance. They can offer free furniture for the tenants. So it depends on how the business model of the specific agency is. And I'm sure there's many business models, because that's how agencies differentiate each other at the end of the day. They all need a unique selling point. And if they're all the same and they'll have the same fees and agreements, how are you going to choose? You know, it's difficult. So each one of them comes with their different way of collecting fees and making a profit. Okay, let's see, next question. What is a property management software? So, as I was saying, the agency that is hired to manage a property needs to do a lot of things. So they need to remember when your gas certificate expires, when your agreement with the tenant expires, when you need to have your property checked. So all of these things are stored in a software. Sometimes the software also allows you to request references, do background checks, contact professionals, produce invoices and receipts, give the receipts to the tenant, give invoices to the professionals, and all of these things. So there's a few things a property management software has. For example, we are in the process of building an app that allows people to do inventory. So you could easily have a property management software that allows that as well. I am not familiar with all these property management softwares because there's a lot of them and haven't tested all of them, but each one of them is different. And I'm sure that agencies and the software companies that are producing these property management softwares are working together to improve them and to make them even better and to add even more features. But overall, that's what a software is good for when it comes to property management, to remind the agent about all the things that need to be done and to help them chase people, because chasing people about things takes a long time. And time is money. So at the end of the day, this saves a lot of time for the agents, and it makes their job easier. Okay, let's see next. How much property management costs? So as I was saying before, it depends on the country, depends on the area, depends on the city, and depends on the agency. For example, if an agency is online, because there are a few online agencies, they can charge less because they don't need to pay for the office. They can hire people from anywhere around the world, so their costs are lower, so they can afford to offer a lower price for the landlord. So that can be their selling point. And there are other agencies who charge a premium, but they have expensive offices and they have very expensive software and so on. They have a lot of systems in place. So it depends. But I think somewhere between 8 and 10% would be, but some agencies charge a fixed amount. So it depends. If they manage a property that has a family in it, would probably be easier to manage than a property that is an HMO, where it's a property that has 4 or 5 rooms or more, and they're rented on a room-by-room basis. So if an agency has a normal flat rented to a group of friends or to a small family, and they all have their names on the agreement, then that property is much easier to manage, and usually the agency would charge a standard fee of 8 to 10%. Some of them add the VAT on top. This is, of course, to make it sound cheaper. They wouldn't say it's actually 12%. They would say it's 10% plus VAT. and you should be aware that VAT is another 2%. So if you ever hear this, 10% plus VAT, for example, means 12%. Okay, so 12% of the rent collected from the tenant is kept by the agency. So that is an example. And another example could be charging the fee based on how many tenants there are. So you could charge for every tenant £50 a month or 100. So it depends on the business model. There are agencies that specialize in HMOs, in shared homes. So those agencies charge more because dealing with tenants that are independent is much more of a headache than dealing with someone who's renting the whole house, because when the pipes get clogged or where you need to change a light in the house, if it's in a communal area, the agency has to deal with that, for example. But if it's in a house that is rented by a family, that is the family's problem, not the agencies. So that's why. Okay, next question. Can a property management company raise rent? Yes, they can. They can do anything as long as it's legal and as long as the landlord requested it. So normally this rent increase will be the idea of the landlord. So once the contract has expired, what the management company does is say, ask the landlord if they want to renew the lease and if they want to increase the rent. And then the landlord decides. Now, normally a landlord, if he's happy with you and he wants to keep you in the property and doesn't want to sell the property, would not increase the rent, because at least at the moment, when you increase the rent, you have the risk of having the tenants leave. And if your tenants leave, then it takes 2 to 3 months to fill that property, which means 2 to 3 months of rent for that year is lost. But yes, they can increase it, but only when your lease has expired. So if you're contracted for 6 months, after 6 months you can get notified that your rent has increased. And if your contract expires after a year, they can only increase it after 1 year. They cannot increase it before that. That's why sometimes tenants, when they rent a flat, like I did as well, they rent it for a longer time, but they put a breaking clause. So you could say that you want the property for 12 months and then you want a breaking clause after 6 months, or you can say you want the property for 5 years and you want to have it for a fixed term of 12 months, and after the 12 months you should be allowed to live if you want to. Now, this breaking clause states that you can live in the property for 5 years basically without having your rent increased. Sometimes this is convenient for both the landlord as well as the tenant, because the landlord knows for sure that he's not going to have any gaps for 5 years. He's not going to have any voids, which makes him lose money. And the tenant knows that he's not going to have any increase in rent. So it's convenient for both of them. So that's why most agencies try to lock you into a list that is as long as possible. Next question. How often can a property management raise rent? So as I was saying before, whenever your lease expires. So when your contract has expired, if it's a 6-month contract, they can increase it after 6 months, whenever you have to renew it. Now, renewing a contract is not mandatory. You could just not renew it, which means you are moving on to a rolling monthly contract. So you still have right to live in that property, but you no longer have to stay there for another 12 months. If you renew your lease, then it means you have to stay another 12 months and you get penalized if you don't do it. So you're basically obligated once you've signed a new agreement. If you don't sign a new agreement, it doesn't mean you have to move out, or it doesn't mean that your contract has expired and is no longer valid. It just converts itself into a rolling monthly contract. Okay. Let's see, how many questions do we have? One more. Can property management enter your apartment? Yes, they can. They can enter your apartment if they need to do checks. They usually do property checks, or they need the certificates updated. So what they normally do, and they are legally required to do so, is to call you and ask. They have to give you at least 24-hour notice. Sometimes they ask before. So they get the gas company, for example, to call you and ask when is convenient for you to have them over. And then you can say next week or in 2 days or 3 days. So that's how they would normally do it. Or they send you an email saying that they want to make you aware that next week you're going to have a property check. So they don't tell you 24 hours in advance unless it's like an emergency. In case of an emergency, they are allowed to access your property, but usually it doesn't happen. And they wouldn't just come knocking on your door. If your landlord does that, that's a problem, because it's not acceptable. You know, they have to give you notice. You cannot refuse that notice, but they do have to let you know before. Okay, how property management systems work? So I'm not sure what it refers to, the system, when people Google this question, but having a system in place is probably everything you need to do from the beginning until the end of the tenancy. So what do you do once you found the tenant? Okay, well, you need to make sure they have everything. You need to do the check-in, you need to do the inventory, and so on. And then once they do that, you need to give them a phone number where they contact people. You have to make them aware of how they should proceed in case they need help. You have to let them know what things they can ask for help with and what things are their responsibility. Of course, this is written in the agreement as well, but not a lot of people take time to read the entire agreement. Okay, and then at the end, you have to know how much time do they need to give notice? What are the obligations of the landlord? What obligations has the agency? What obligations has the tenant? And you have all of these things in place. And then you have to know, if this happens, if the tenant doesn't pay rent, what do? You have to let the landlord know as well. Are you going to help him with eviction or not? Or if the landlord does something, you have to know what to do in that case. So this is having a system in place. Of course, the software comes in handy here, because the software can make it easier for you to have that system in place, but you can easily have it without the software as well. Okay, can property management be lucrative? Yes, it can, but I would suggest you to start small. Either start from another agency or start on your own, but grow it gradually. Do not hire someone full-time straight away. Or maybe if you do that, you should do it only with one person. Maybe you want to hire someone part-time at first. But as I said, you need a lot of skills. So you have to think. Do not think that you're going to be doing everything. You have to think, what are you going to do and what are your employees going to do? What are they going to help you with? Property management is very good, but it's hard to find clients. You have to know, you have to have an idea on how to find a client. And once you're there, you just have to keep going and have to make sure that you train the person that you're hiring, and that you're checking on them. And then once they've proven that can be trusted, and once you increase your portfolio of properties, then you can start growing and more, and you can add more people, you can buy more software, and so on. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy more advanced softwares than to hire more people. But it depends, you know. Everyone learns from their experience and chooses the thing that is more convenient for them. Okay, and yes, this is the end. This was the last question. If you have any experience or you want to add to any of my answers from the previous questions, please leave a comment below. If you have another question about property management, please leave a comment below, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, and before I go, we do have property management trainings coming up soon. So we are going to do an online course about how to manage a property. And you can be part of that if you want. I will leave a link in the description to our website where you can see the upcoming course. And yeah, please leave a comment and get in touch. Bye-bye.